Yeah.
It was really funny. I was listening to some clips about Tucker's interview with Putin, and he asked him about the dollar and stuff, and like the weird thought train that Putin goes down is so interesting to listen to. You're like, what planet are you on, man?
I just can't imagine how interesting, whether or not you respect him or not, politically or like whatever he is, like he has got to be a fascinating person as to what the fuck is going on. Because you think about like that guy's life experience, military KGB, then watch the collapse of the Soviet Union, take over essentially as the president of Russia, which, I mean, to be fair, I think he's been doing that for 30 years. So if you think about that guy, just the life experience, that guy's been running Russia for longer than most of their royalty.
Yeah.
Like, and he was a KGB guy
Yeah.
in the Cold War.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And he didn't come
Very
from
interesting
like
stories.
an oligarchy family. Like
No.
he came from nothing. Like his I started reading a biography on him, and it was a little dense. I didn't get all the way through it, but his grandfather like has this crazy World War II story. He was basically like left alone, and he had to move from the Western Front like all the way back to safety, and then he had to like convince people that he didn't, you know, abandon his post or anything, and somehow survived, and like everyone but his grandfather was killed. It's an insane story.
There's
He's
like,
an intense guy. Like
Yeah.
he's a very intense character. When he was talking about the devaluing of the U.S. dollar, and kind of that's the cornerstone currency, the international cornerstone currency, and how the government is increasing or devaluing the currency by increasing money, and which is basically inflation. If you're tracking it from a keep it simple, stupid type term, I'm like, he's not wrong. Like they just keep printing more money, and then the $34 trillion in debt that you're thinking about, like that ultimately somebody is going to have to service that debt, which is the taxpayer. Like those are specifically valid points. These are points that also a lot of Americans are making. So I kept thinking about, is he placating specifically, and there has to be a percentage of that where he's placating to an American voter saying like, oh, you know what, I agree with this. So whether or not he truly believes it, because he's using this as an event essentially to co-op, a section of the American public, because he can say whatever the fuck he wants to say. Like, it's not as if like Russians are going to have access to this information, because he can control the information inside his own borders. So he can say whatever he wants. It's just going to be televised specifically to Americans.
Did you watch the whole interview? I jumped around like 30 minutes probably.
No, I haven't had the time. I want to sit down and just watch it. I mean, just in general, I think it's fascinating that a journalist got to go out
We haven't heard
interview
from him in like
him.
4 years.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fucking fascinating. When you think about it, that guy spent time, a significant amount of time, with like the Bush administration, and then the Obama administration, the Trump administration. Like, he has seen multiple different administrations in the United States. Like, he's been around for a long time. I was like reading some things on it. I read like a full in-depth article on it from, it might have been Matt Taibbi, not sure, but like he sounded like a Russian history professor at times. Like I was like, reciting Russian history, and the comparisons were like Biden can't remember where he is half the time, and then Putin's giving like a 30-year lecture series, or like a 30-minute lecture series on Russian history with like detailed specific points, and like, our president can't remember where his fucking keys are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's the danger of electing like elderly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and either like whatever opinions you have on Putin, I think it is just interesting that we're able to like hear this perspective. Like
I think it's great.
I'm such a huge fan of like just being able to hear perspective, like no matter where it comes from. Like that was always such a big part of being in the Marine Corps, was like, know thine enemy or know the other perspective. Like, I just really appreciate the fact that he'd like had the balls to go do that.
I'm more of a simpleton, you know, where it's like bad guy gun, me shoot. That's where I keep it. It's, you know,
Right.
keep the knuckles on the ground.